It's that one behavior that is the only one that I've actually seen. I can easily label you as a toxic individual.
The dominance, when a guy has this need to control everything.
But ultimately, it's your word against theirs. So are you in sync with them? And you say, it's my way or the highway.
Toxic femininity applies to all women and toxic masculinity applies to all men because they exhibit certain types of behavior. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Manarchy podcast with me, Chris. I'm joined today by Wilson, by Ina, and by Samit. Welcome guys, thank you for joining me.
How are you doing?
Thank you for having us.
Very well. And today we're going to be discussing the topic of toxic masculinity versus toxic femininity, what they are and what they mean to all of us. So let's start guys, let's open the discussion, very contentious issues. Wilson, how would you describe toxic masculinity and toxic femininity? What are they?
Let me talk about masculinity first. All right. Look, for both, it could be two kinds. One is you inherit, it's kind of in you. The other one is the circumstances which make you toxic. What happens is it depends upon the situations. For example, if you're working in your office and if you've got someone who's walking in, looks up to you and just ignores you, that is toxic. But then it's an action to a reaction, I always say, because you don't know what he has gone through early in the morning. What are his thoughts, So you can't really sit and engage and say, oh, this guy is toxic or this girl is toxic. No, you need to understand the whole dynamics of it. Delve into it and then try and understand what is toxic all about. Because you can't just label anyone based on one particular action saying it's toxic. If it happens on a continuous motion, then you can say, okay, something is wrong. We need to fix this, if you are able to fix it. Right? So we can delve more once the conversation takes over.
Ina, tell me, what is toxic masculinity and what is toxic femininity?
Well, to me, I think toxic masculinity, when I hear that phrase, it will be a guy who is very controlling, coercive control, and basically treats women as they're beneath him, and just basically have stinky attitudes when it comes to women, and maybe things, very alpha male, obviously, in the femininity thing, is different. It's different to what I actually thought it was.
Okay. How so?
Well, I thought it was toxic femininity. I thought it would be very women bashing men, but actually it's more about women bashing other women and having ideas of how women should be and quite sort of anti-feminism.
Right.
So yeah,
okay.
So that was an interesting discovery actually.
Interesting. Samit?
Toxic masculinity, I think, has two parts to it, in my personal opinion. There's one that is by core definition of what the word toxicity is and what masculinity is in one camp, and the other one is perception-based.
Okay.
So what I strongly believe is it's very easy when you look at the perception side of things that what is toxic for you may not be toxic for me, right? So in this camp, everything can be toxic and nothing is. Right. So it's all about how you perceive it. I could be speaking with a louder tone of voice, and I've been in that position where it's like, wow, that's toxic behavior. Whereas yet another person in the opposite camp, a woman would say, well, that's fairly normal. That's a nice assertive man who's speaking and making his point without actually saying anything ugly. So that's the perception definition of toxic masculinity. Masculine behavior, which is perceived differently by different individuals based on their upbringing, based on their value systems, based on their cultural and socioeconomic standards. So when you look at the second camp of it, which is the core definition of the words toxicity and masculinity, black letter, let's just say. Toxicity is anything that is too much of what is considered baseline normalcy, right? I mean, if you look at it just from a medical standpoint, also toxic is an overexposure to something that causes a specific amount of damage. From a behavioral perspective, that would be there's a baseline expectation of a man behaving a certain way, which could be a variety of factors that are established by gender roles, by history, by science, by biology, by nature and nurture, genetics versus upbringing. This is what an ideal man behaves as. And that would be defined by terms that change in every generation. So if you look at it in that generational aspect of it, this is what a man should behave as soon as he deviates from that behavior, becomes, as you said, too alpha, or as in becomes extremely aggressive to the opposite sex, becomes too controlling, barring the fact that maybe some amount of control through gender roles is acceptable and some amount is not acceptable. Then that's considered toxic behavior, too much overexposure of that. And then comes the beautiful definition of masculinity, which can go into a variety of definitions today, but the previous generation's definition was fairly clear. And that's basically behaviors that are largely within the camp of the male exposure of emotions, the male exposure of behavioral mechanisms and actions. So I believe toxic masculinity from a biological perspective is very straightforward, which is the black letter law of it. This is how we expect in this generation a man to behave, whether that's gender roles like providing or protecting or chivalry and you name it, a variety of good things and certain amount of aggressive behaviors that come inherent to being a man, and then deviating from it and becoming extremely exposed in that. That then, of course, causes emotional and psychological damage to the other party. But then, of course, a perception-based will say everything else, that what's not toxic will suddenly become toxic because I perceive it this way.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Is negative energy also toxic? I'll explain to you why before you can all chime in. Is a boy or a girl is doing everything fine, but there is something about that individual which you won't like. There is something missing. You feel it brings in a lot of negative energy, Is it toxic?
I absolutely do not think so. Because I agreed with your point in my mind when you were saying it. I was like, the problem with today is blanket and white implementation of labels. If you, Wilson, said something ugly to me, and then that may be a function of a fight you had with someone else, stress at work, or some other problem that's been overarching in your head that changes you and takes you out of your normalcy.
Yeah.
But it's that one behavior that is the only one that I've actually seen. I can easily label you as a toxic individual. So forget about male or female.
So the word toxic itself is all misconstrued.
It's contextual.
Yes.
Exactly. Right? However, today the problem is we use that context and we change it into making it the entire being.
According to our
right? This is a toxic male. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. That's toxic behavior in the context of that conversation or that interaction that we've had. I can't write off the entire individual. In light of that, every man would be writing off his wife and every wife will be writing off his man overnight, and there'd be nothing but divorces all over.
Ina, tell me, where does it come from? Where do the toxic masculine and toxic feminine individuals or collectives, where do they come from? Where does it come from? Where does that behavior stem from?
I would say probably some insecurity on a deep level.
Yeah.
Childhood stuff. How someone was, what the beliefs that someone was raised to have.
Can you give me an example of what you might describe as a typically toxic masculine behavior?
Yeah, definitely varies the dominance, like when a guy has this need to control everything, every situation, and it is he always wants to run the show kind of thing, and not be equal, there's no equality in a toxic masculinity world.
I think for example, one might be that men are encouraged not to show their emotions or to be vulnerable. Would you agree with that? Would you say that classifies as classic toxic masculinity?
Not necessarily. I think men not showing emotions, and which is, we all know, is very common, that they find it hard to voice out their feelings and talk about their feelings, and they keep things inside. I wouldn't say that's necessarily toxic, but toxic is more of chauvinism.
Okay.
For instance, that for me is very toxic.
Okay.
When a man is chauvinistic.
How would you describe chauvinism?
Definitely a man who thinks he's above women.
Okay.
And, that's where it comes from, right? A man who thinks his woman should just be in the
Beneath
kitchen
him.
cooking and cleaning and being pregnant or whatever,
Okay. Wilson.
Yeah.
But it also relates to where he shows it. It's within the family. It's at his workplace. Because then there are different levels, right? At a workplace, if he is vulnerable, trust me, people will pounce on him, right? So he has to show that attitude. He has to show that dominance, right?
Very well said, actually.
Yeah. But when I say dominance, doesn't mean bullying. Now, see,
You mean leadership?
leadership.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to be challenged by your co-workers,
Yeah.
right? But then, once you're challenged, are you accepting that at times you could lose, you could win?
It's a battle.
It's a battle.
It's a battle every day.
It's a battle.
Correct.
But ultimately, it's your word against theirs. So are you in sync with them? And you say, it's my way or the highway. That's the problem. And then if I'm a man, if you've got a boss who is a woman, we're both in the same class, same caliber, same education, yet she is above me. I'm then willing to take her dominance over me. You see, it's a mental ability to accept a woman in power. Are you then willing to accept what she says, or are you willing to challenge her each and every time?
I have an additional point to this,
That could
actually,
create-
which you opened up a beautiful point here. Now, of course, a man that is unable to see as a female leader or unable to reconcile that or has his ego consistently hurt, comes from a place of insecurity, will then exhibit behaviors that will be negatively chauvinistic. The point I would try to make here is also the definition of chauvinism, right? I mean, in general, chauvinistic behaviors of men are in many ways welcomed by women. In fact, from the dating part of, I would say, relationship building, chauvinism is actually expected. And that is the positive aspects of chauvinism as opposed to the negative aspects of it. So it's very important, I believe, to define negative chauvinism, which is all the behaviors you're mentioning are aggressively negative, right? I mean, that can be super destructive for a woman to be in that position and to have to deal with that kind of a man. But the positive would be where I'm going to take that leadership position, let's say in a relationship, not at work yet, and I'm going to open the door and I'm going to pull the chair before she sits
But we
down.
call that chivalry.
Chivalry, but also is an expression of chauvinism.
Yeah,
But it's
I
a
can see
positive
that.
expression of chauvinism, which most men
Well, it used to be.
Yeah, that's exactly what it
used
was.
to be.
In fact, that was an attractive characteristic
Yeah.
in a potential male mate, so to speak, right?
Now,
That's just
now
like
we're being told that if we do these things as men, that we are
usurping
somehow,
independence.
Yes, and
Exactly.
we're removing a woman's autonomy, and we are telling them that they're weaker than us and they're or less capable, at least. And I think I've never been a fan of this, and this will lead me on to the next point about grouping people together, about using collective terms or using one word to describe an entire set of behaviors.
Correct.
So, for example, we can say something is chivalrous, but the same person I would open, the person that I open the door for or let sit down or pay the bill for could be anybody. It could be a male friend or, female friend or whoever it is. It's got nothing to do with like the fact that they're a man or a woman, and everything to do with the fact that they're just another human being and I'm being kind. So I think sometimes we can be a bit reductive in terms of saying, okay, well, this is this type of behavior. No, it's not always that kind of, and conversely, when we're talking about negative behaviors, and this will lead me on to the next point, is, and Samit, I'll start with you, should we be grouping people together in terms of saying that toxic femininity applies to all women and toxic masculinity applies to all men because they exhibit certain types of behavior?
I absolutely do not agree, and this is exactly what's creating the divide between men and women. It's creating this war of the sexes, which never existed to this point.
Yeah.
Right. Even the original founders of the feminist movement are sitting there today and just like, this is not what we started.
Yes.
Right. We
Yeah.
want no part of this, and that's because it has been taken to an activist momentum where everything is black and white. There is no gray area anymore, and there is no conversation about reconciliation. to your point exactly, it would take just one behavior to write off an entire individual, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and this would be relegated before to the aesthetic aspects of people, which is like someone's fat, and you'd be like, well, that person's fat. Let's judge that person for what it is. But now it is not even your aesthetics. It is just one aspect of one behavior or one expression in one moment,
Just a
in one
complete lack of
specific
tolerance.
context.
Yeah.
No tolerance, no ability for you to understand. Listen, you're human. So am I. I may exhibit exactly this behavior, and I would expect you to then wear that golden shoe and be like, okay, yeah, I give you this leeway. You're having a bad day.
Ina?
Yeah, it's terrible the way it's going at the moment. It's all men are this or all women are that. No, because we are all different, right? And we do have our own things. And yeah, it's very sad. I think the way the world is going with we seem to be more divided than ever.
Yeah.
And especially maybe the younger generation, I think, and the expectations of the opposite sex as well is unrealistic.
What do you find as a woman what's it like to be on the receiving end of toxically masculine behavior?
Oh, it's absolutely horrible. It's absolutely horrible. But I would, I grew up in Norway, a very liberal country. So, I would fight back straight away with that sort of behavior. Yeah, I wouldn't take it.
Verbally, of course.
Verbally. Not violent.
But would you then see this, these encampments grow over time, right? I mean, is it like these are echo chambers, I think. So, of course, men speaking to men and vilifying women, and then women speaking to women and vilifying men.
Yeah.
And I mean, this divide, do you also feel it within the women? That it is
mean,
growing to a point of activism that is kind of becoming counterintuitive?
Yeah, today it seems like all men are narcissists, apparently. I don't buy into that. There's because I
it's a heavy word thrown around quite frequently, isn't it?
It's way too overused, and if you actually look at the statistics of how many narcissists are in the society, there is very, very few, and
Yes.
you got to. There's a lot of things that you got to be classified as with narcissistic personality disorder. So it's it seems like everyone's so disillusioned.
Yeah.
How do we find the connection, Wilson?
Look, especially with Gen Z, which is now, they are absolutely in a different warpath. We must understand that. In kind of the olden days, we could manage, but now everyone is, career-oriented, educated. I can feed and fend for myself. I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need you. Ultimately, what has happened is we men are screwed, actually, in a manner. If kind of we are chivalrous, we are bad. If you're not, you're still bad.
Yeah.
Right? See the perception. And 80% of whatever it is loaded in favor of women. All right? Now there are narcissist women as well.
Of course.
Absolutely. But then do we label them? If you do, then why you're labeling them? There are a lot of reasons and excuses and explanation you need to come up with. All right?
Yeah.
So this whole thing, we as elders, when I say elders means, the old generation, has now to inculcate those kind of educating these young boys and girls into reconciling. And that is not happening as of now. It's just a straight path. Nobody wants to meet. Nobody wants to give up. We both are individuals, mentally strong. This is what I want. You're with me or you're not with me. Simple.
I have one question, just one brief one, and I think you might expand on your point. I think everything is a spectrum. So if, let's say this is a rubber band, and you've got the men and women fighting for their identity decades ago, and now it's getting to a point where, of course, women are like, we need equality. There's egalitarianism required across the board, careers, blah, 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 which is all good, which is all something that should anyway happen, right? So, but now when it happened, it kind of stretched too far in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And we just happen to be sitting during that period of time in our existence where it is at its absolute max on the other side. So should it just be that we wait it out and it just corrects itself right back to normal?
Pendulum will
Because
swing back the
For
other
how
way.
long? For how long can you wait out?
well, I mean, I guess we just happen to be sitting through the bra burning phase again. Right?
Exactly.
I
That's what I'm
like,
saying. Because look, we are willing to wait out. But the younger ones, no, they won't.
they'll probably be the guinea pigs, right? They'll
Exactly.
struggle through
Well, the
this
kids will
entire.
say, but times are changing, Dad.
Exactly.
So times are changing.
You're
Mum.
old and,
What
kind
what
of
do you,
whatever it is.
how do you final thoughts on how we circumvent this topic. Sumit, from you, what do you think? How can we tackle this issue and get people to reconnect?
We talked about this on one of our earlier episodes. Just take a step back, take a breather, give the benefit of the doubt to the other person to actually be human. Because I think you'll expect the same from yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Because you as a human are allowed to have negative and positive emotions, screw up, make mistakes,
Exactly.
curse, maybe hurt a relationship here and there. But then if you are getting right back to the normal baseline, and then I can apologize, I want to fix this is important to me, relationships mean something to me, and you know what your baseline is, except those narcissists and all those damaging personalities that exist with disorders, then you give that other person the breathing room and the space to come back to normalcy also, and you can still have a positive relationship. So it comes down to tolerance.
Yeah, and acceptance. I think a lot
Absolutely.
of acceptance and
When did we
maybe
forget being
also-
human, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
and
realize that.
Also learn some emotional regulation, and don't misunderstand things on purpose, which is often done, I think.
I guess that comes down to being willing to receive information, to actually listen
Yeah.
to the opposite party and say, okay, well, I might not agree with you,
Yeah.
but
But validate their feelings.
but validate their feelings and actually take in what they're saying and absorb it and dissect it, if you will. Wilson, final thoughts from you?
See, nobody can change you but yourself. And that change has to come from within. Rather than pointing fingers and hating someone. That's a no. So this is where I would start. If somebody is kind of trying to dominate me, I will figure out the reasons why. Why so much of hatred? If it's one incident, okay.
If that person's important to you.
Exactly.
Correct.
If it's not, then I'll just say, thank you very much, nice knowing you, but move on.
Yeah.
As simple as that. Don't really bother, because if somebody is bothering you, that means something is wrong with you, not with that individual. Right?
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So-
Pick your battles,
Pick,
basically.
pick your battles.
Yeah.
And this is what I always do. If you're important to me, I will try and sort it out.
Yes.
But if you're not, you don't kind of hit me mentally.
Yeah.
I don't really care who
But
you are.
your reaction is a choice, right?
That's right.
it's
Every action shouldn't be a reaction.
Absolutely.
And this is how you need to circumvent. This is how you need to place yourself. Hold yourself well. Blame yourself. Try and change yourself. And this is how things will
Personal
work.
responsibility.
Exactly.
Everyone, thank you very much for your points of view. Thank you for joining me for this episode.
Thanks.
And thank you as well. Hope you found this useful. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and we'll see you on the next one.